Hello and welcome. The goal of this podcast is to get listeners connected with others in the sports industry because they say it's all about who you know, and now you know us. Hello and welcome everybody to the Constant Sports Podcast, where we connect you with the movers and shakers in the sports industry. I'm your host today, Connor Shank, and we have a truly exceptional guest joining us today. He's a leading figure in the world of sports, as Brian has worked for the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Brooklyn Nets, BSC Global, NFL On Location, and now is the CEO of Concierge Live. And thanks for joining us today, Brian.
Thanks for having me, Connor. I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for coming, like I was saying, and we're looking forward to kind of dive into your background a little bit, as you have an extensive career in sports and ticket sales, etc. And so, just to kind of kick us off here and hit the ground running, maybe share some of your early experiences for the listeners and viewers out there who maybe are in their first or second job in sports, and kind of what that looked like for you.
Yeah, sure. So I started my career with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I was in an inside sales position, which is really like a telemarketing position. It was an incredible organization. They really invested in young people and really training us, teaching us the process of sales, and business development. So we spent a fair amount of time training and then truly going out there in the marketplace and learning how to prospect and learning how to go see customers and give a presentation and ultimately close deals. So that was an amazing experience. I did that for 2 years. I did that for Chad Estes and Mike Andreyko, two of the top people in the industry who are now in, both at Legends. And then I was able to work with the Brooklyn Nets and Barclays Center. I worked for two additional mentors there, and Brett Yormark, who was the CEO at the time, and now he's the commissioner of the Big 12, and Fred Mangione, who was the COO of the time at the time. And my tenure there, I started as at 24 years old. I started as a sales manager there. I half knew what I was doing, but we're kind of learning on the job there.
Yeah.
And worked my way from a sales manager to running a department, and then ultimately part of the executive team there, where we were running the day-to-day business of the Nets. And then also the team was moving from New Jersey to Brooklyn, building the Barclays Center. So I was part of the executive team that sort of strategized and ultimately opened up Barclays Center. So those were my two early ones. I spent a little time also at a company called NFL On Location. I worked for some great people, and Jerry Cardinale and George Pine and John Collins there. And that was a property that is owned by the NFL and two private equity companies, and also had a great experience there. And now I'm in my seat at Concierge Live, trying to change the world here, man.
Yeah, no, love it. Great background there, and a history on kind of where you've been and some of the things you were able to accomplish, and kind of your early days, we'll call it, when you're just getting into the sports industry and the ticket sales side of things. And I feel like some of those kind of entry level jobs is, kind of ticket sales. Those are some of the jobs that, a lot of kids out of college, attend, because there's so many teams, so many openings. What were some of the, I guess, key lessons and development type of things that you learned while you were first getting into the sports space?
Yeah, listen, you're 100% right. That oftentimes is sort of the gateway of getting into the sports business. I had an incredible experience. Honestly, the training that I learned in sort of the skill of new business development, but also just like what it's like to work at a professional
Yeah.
place after just coming out of college, I thought was an incredible experience. Some things that I would recommend to your listeners are the following. One, soak everything up. You never know if what you're doing on day one, if you're actually going to do that, or it's just part of sort of a mosaic of what you're gonna of what your career is going to be. I think the most important things, though, are two things. One is align yourself with leaders that you really gravitate to. Those people that will invest in you, A, just to make you better, but B, those people are also the people usually like moving up in their career. And if you're aligned with them, oftentimes they'll take you with them, or create opportunities. So that was a major takeaway that maybe I didn't know then that I know now. And then the second thing is like really hard work. These entry level jobs, I don't think anybody's putting a man on the moon on day one. Oftentimes you're making cold calls or making copies or getting lunch for executives, but everything's a signal and everything can kind of be a competition. So are you making more cold calls than everybody else in your sort of peer cohort? Are you making copies faster than the last person that did it? Those are all signals of like, hey, I'm really invested in to moving up,
Right.
whatever it is. And I would highly recommend doing that. It's little things that are in your control that only take effort that can really pay a lot of dividends.
Yeah, or kind of reminds me of the old adage is how you do anything is how you do everything. So it's kind of, you're
Yes.
doing one thing, it's just how you're gonna, do the next thing. And like you're mentioning with I guess your bosses or other people, maybe not even a boss, someone kind of your same level, they see like, oh, Brian's, he's kind of he staples all the papers. He doesn't just staple, the first few copies or whatever it is, right? It's kind of the idea that you're gonna put forward your best foot all the time, not just, when someone's looking.
Yeah, Connor, and just not to spend too much time on this, but like I think people when they envision, hey, what do they want to be, particularly in the sports industry, they think of like hitting these huge home runs. And
Mhm.
really what it is it's a million singles and each little inch of just how do you differentiate yourself from the other person. That's really how these people that most of us look up to, that's really how they got there. And then a couple home runs here and there, but it's all the little singles in between that really sort of get it going. And the other thing is like some things aren't in your control. This
Yeah.
is in your control. And so take advantage of it.
Yep, no, love that. Great advice for the listeners and viewers. And now we'll jump a little bit to Concierge Live and kind of what you're doing now. And so maybe break down kind of your new role now as CEO over there and kind of what you're doing over there.
Yeah, sure. So I'm in charge of running the business of Concierge Live. Ultimately, Concierge Live, we're a corporate sports and entertainment ticket management platform. That's a fancy term for ultimately we're like a CRM for a company's sports tickets. If you're a big bank, a big insurance company, a big technology company, and you have tickets and lots of different venues and with lots of different teams, that comes with some inherent challenges. How do we keep track of all these tickets? And we spent a lot of money on these
Yeah.
tickets. Like, how do we make sure they're getting used? How do we measure the quality of the usage of those? That's what our software does, and that's the pain point that we meet.
Love it. And then what are some maybe, I guess, unique solutions or things that you and your team kind of bring to the table in the ticket management sector?
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, most companies still to this day, if they own, a suite or several season tickets of various venues, most of them are, collecting all their internal ticket requests via email, and they're trying to keep track of all these events and all their various tickets. They're trying to keep track of them on spreadsheets, and they're having to go in and out of various team apps to get the tickets out. And if anybody has any time, they're tracking who used them or whatever, but usually that kind of fizzles.
Yeah.
What our software does is we are an internal ticket portal
Mhm.
where employees can request request tickets and their manager can approve it. That ticket then goes into a queue that automatically gets delivered, and that data is tracked in the aggregate so that the C-level people at a company can say, hey, we spent $1 million on tickets or $50,000 on tickets. Where did it go? Who
Yeah.
used them? Did they even get used? And if they did get used, like, did that actualize new business for us or get us a renewal? All these things that it's really exciting to buy these tickets, and everybody has good intentions of like, we're going to take clients and it's going to win us business. But like, how do you know? Who's
Yeah.
tracking it? It's very time consuming. And although it's a simple concept, it doesn't get executed all that often. Our software really makes it easy to do that.
Yep. Great to hear. And it's I was curious about kind of, you know, maybe don't divulge company secrets, obviously, but maybe like primary clients, is it, as you mentioned, insurance companies, bigger companies and things like that? Is it I guess smaller, minor level kind of stadiums as well, or is it just kind of the top dogs?
Connor, it's a great question. Listen, like our core clients are team sponsors, brands that do a lot of hospitality,
Mm.
teams themselves. And they can be any category. Frankly, honestly, there's more use cases now than when I originally took this job, which is good news. And so the biggest categories are, brands in the financial sector, brands in the insurance sector, brands in the technology or automotive sector. Those are probably the biggest ones. But the addressable market for this business is way bigger than I thought. And there are just 1,000 or tens of thousands of little companies that, like, they have 4 tickets to their local minor league team, and they have a suite at their local football team or whatever, and they still have the same pain point. It is a scalable pain point.
Right. Well, and that's kind of when I first came across the company, the brand. I just started thinking, the big stadiums. But then I started thinking, wait a second, I know like a bunch of minor league stadiums. I know a bunch of kind of local municipal stadiums, and they all kind of have sounds like similar pain points as you've been alluding to. So that's, I guess, good to see on your guys' end, obviously.
Yeah, honestly, Connor, I had the same epiphany that you did over there.
Yeah, that's good to see. And then as the ticket management industry, I guess, evolves in the next few years, kind of where do you see Concierge Live playing that evolution, or I mean, will it evolve? How do you see it evolve, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I see the ticket industry evolving in several different ways. Listen, the variety of contents that's coming to stadiums and arenas continues to grow. I think the not only the revenue opportunities and the data capture opportunities that are coming to arenas is bigger than ever before.
Mhm.
And I think Concierge Live plays a big role in that. Listen, our core business is always going to be helping clients sort of simplify the management of tickets. But as people want to get richer data of like, okay, I really want to be extremely precise in my ticket investments.
Mhm.
Truly, hey, a suite at this at venue X costs this, a suite at venue Y costs this, and I really want, instead of just putting my finger in the air, I really want an analytical approach to where I should make that investment. I think that's where Concierge Live can dovetail the best, and we can continue to also help teams of like, hey, our main customers are brands and sponsors. In various ways we can help teams say, hey, this is what's most popular, this is the type of content, or this is the type of premium product that corporate customers are really gravitating to. This is where you should put your investment in.
Mhm. Well, and touching on that a little bit as far as I guess the analytical side and the data behind people entering the venues. Not sure if you have much information on this, but I mean, we're pretty much away from, physical tickets. A lot of companies doing the scans. Obviously that's probably a trend that's going to continue, if not just take over the industry here coming up. But as far as I had a class in grad school and we talked about each person, right? If they buy a beer, if they buy a hot dog, how drilled down analytically do you think we're getting into, Mike Jones sat at 23F and on average he buys one hot dog and a churro. I mean, you think they're getting, into the weeds kind of?
Yeah, I that incredibly so. And I think the digitization of all of these products, the ticket, the POS system for when you buy your churro, which
Right.
is an incredible example, by the way, Connor. The where you park. And I just think that technology is growing more and more where venues can track your digital footprint from A to Z in your entertainment experience. And they're going to look at how do we make that experience the best it possibly can be, and B, how do we optimize the revenue potential out
Right.
of each seat? You know what I mean? And some venues and some teams, it's our product is so strong, and how do we, with obviously everyone wants to have a good faith and wants to make things accessible for their fans, but how do we make as much money on this product because people really want it? Others can be, lower demand teams of just like, how do we just get people to come at
Yeah.
no matter what price? Because when they come, they're going to park and they're going to buy a beer and they're going to buy a churro.
Hmm. Don't
And
forget the churro.
you know what? And there's profit opportunities there, but we need more people just to come, even if it's for $1, just to come, because all the other elements can be profitable.
Right. What it is interesting as the NFL season's about to kick off here is, the Falcons kind of took a different approach where a lot of their food stuff is, very, very cheap, very affordable. And you have
Yeah.
different places where it's, $18 for a beer opposed to, I'm ballparking, but, Falcons, it's like 5 or 6 or whatever. And I think that will be interesting to see kind of on this note is if teams and leagues, obviously, they're in the business to make money, but will it kind of be a quantity over quality approach where the price points, going forward?
I think that's so well said. And the Super Bowl was going to be in Atlanta very soon after they announced that. So I happened to have an opportunity to liaise with the Falcons team when they did that. And I thought it was a really interesting approach. I think the jury is still out on, hey, do you get every single dollar on every single element? Or are you more fan friendly in one area to win the goodwill and also maybe make money elsewhere? I think it's a really interesting experiment that we'll really have data, like hard data on in the next few years. And I think teams will sort of emulate how that how we'll sort of go accordingly to like how that data bears out.
Right. It's kind of like, see if it works, and then we'll play. If it doesn't work, all right, well, at least we didn't jump into it, really, kind of a deal.
And listen, I really commend the team at Arthur Blank Sports. It takes a lot of guts
Yeah.
to try a program to promote it so publicly. And I do think it's going to be a success. And I know that group, they are a very, very smart group. But to sort of go outside the norm, to do something to not sort of just copy everybody else, but really go on a limb on a particular product, I really commend them. And whether it is a success or not, those kind of cultures that take chances are the ones that win in the end.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well said. And as we're kind of touching on, venues and whatnot, I was curious if, obviously a lot of venues are trying to be multifaceted with concerts and different other events and carnivals and games, obviously. But from the ticket side of thing, is I don't know how to phrase this properly, but is one event more of a headache than another as far as ticket management, whether it's an NFL game or a festival or something like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I wouldn't use the word headache. We're going to bring it more positively.
Of course, of course.
But yeah, I'm honestly by nature, these sports seasons, that have 10 events or 40 events or 80 events. Listen, once you get cooking, there's a lot of repeated sort of action. So I would say sports seasons are a little easier, and sort of brick and mortar venues, whether they have some sports teams and they have some concerts and other events. Those are a little bit more familiar. Pop-up events that sort of have one event, like Coachella, it has like one big event that is very visible, and then kind of goes dormant. I mean, those ones are a little harder because everybody, like, there's not a whole lot of practice, and then you get perfect on day one.
Yeah.
And so those present more challenges. But listen, that's why people do business with us, because we're supposed to give them some extra expertise how to navigate that.
Yeah, well said. And kind of on the business side of things, is specific kind of in your role, business what are some business kind of day-to-day, operations of things that you do in your role for the listeners and viewers to kind of, maybe down the line think about, maybe not working for a team specifically. Because I feel like when people say, I want to work in sports, it's like GM of the Falcons or, president of the Orioles, but they don't necessarily think of all the adjacent companies within sports. And so obviously you found your a role in sports, but not essentially, with an actual team. So what does kind of a day-to-day in your role look like?
Yeah, Connor, that's a great question. Listen, as far as actually working in a front office, like on the basketball or football operations side, like, I'm still waiting for my call. So I can't give anybody advice on that one, but I'm still available if anybody wants me in those. As far as the business side, I would say working at Concierge Live. So we're a vendor of sports teams and sports sponsors and brands. The actual workings of our company are very, very similar to my experience actually working for the Cavs or the Nets or NFL on location. And my day-to-day, I mean, listen, we have 3 or 4 sort of business verticals, whether it's business development, whether it's service, whether it's our technology team, which is a little different than maybe others, and our G&A, like finance and stuff like that. My job is to oversee those, but my core skill set is still business development. And I think every sort of CEO comes at it differently. Typically, every CEO ultimately is responsible for everything, but I would say a part of their day-to-day still leans towards, all right, like kind of what got you there. You have some that came up through the finance vertical, and they're always going to be kind of the offensive coordinator of that and the head coach. I would say I'm sort of the offensive coordinator on business development and then the head coach on everything else. But I really need much stronger coordinators in finance and on our support team and our technology team, because those are not my natural areas of
Uh-huh.
expertise.
Or just goes kind of building a good team, and whoever took you to advance, kind of stay with them, kind of type of concept. And as you've been in your role, what are some of the challenges that you faced? Maybe some typical challenges, I'm sure, but maybe some challenges you were not planning on, obviously, that have came about.
Yeah, I mean the challenges that I think about the most, when we were opening up Barclays Center, and that's a huge project. And there's 7 years of thought and execution that went into that. But no matter how much you plan, like you will not have thought of everything. And not and in a smaller scale of Concierge Live, we're a pretty small company in the beginning. I think it all comes down to like you want to be as prepared as you possibly can be. Like control the controllables.
Yep.
The things that you know are coming your way, make sure you have them down pat. And be really, really well prepared so that you can use your mental bandwidth for the unknown unknowns that are coming your way last minute. A little,
Yep.
I'm not, I loathe to be judgy, but like leaders that aren't solid on the known knowns, that's a real mistake because it's in your control, and those should go really well. And if you don't have the known knowns covered, your ability and your bandwidth to address the unknowns are impossible. And I'll give credit to the senior leadership at Barclays Center. I mean, the first concert we had at Jay-Z was amazing. It was one of the best memories of my career, but it was also one of the most stressful nights of my life.
Sure.
And you're, at one point you're, making sure the most important customers that you sold years ago are having a good time. Another is like, we ran out of ice and I'm trying to figure out, I don't even know where the ice maker is. I certainly did not go to college to do this, but like, it's just got to get done.
Yep,
It's
you
all
gotta
hands
happen.
on deck. And I think, with this semi long-winded story, I think it's be as prepared as you can for what you can, and then just be willing to like be results oriented in the rest.
Yep.
I think that, I've been a manager of people for a long time. They're kind of two buckets of people. There are people that because speed bumps come no matter what. And there are people that make excuses and spend a lot of energy on justifying why something did not get done. And there are problem solvers, which are like, hey, we have these headwinds we didn't anticipate. We still have a goal to meet. How are we going to get there with these new challenges? And the people in the second bucket, those are the ones that really move up in this industry.
Yep. Like you said, being a problem solver is never going to hurt, no matter what problem comes about. And as we're kind of on this, I guess, leadership kind of hitch here, what are some qualities that you've seen? As you mentioned, you've kind of been managing, other individuals and et cetera for a while. But what are some qualities you see? I guess you look for in, I guess maybe not young professionals in general.
Yeah, a couple of things. Most importantly, a penchant for hard work. Nothing replaces effort. I think a willingness to be self-reflective and to be vulnerable, particularly early on. Actually, not even particularly early on. Anytime, no one's perfect. Everybody can get better. I think if you're closed-minded and defensive about that, you never will get better. But if you're open-minded and sort of comfortable in your own skin, there are constantly new things you could be doing to improve yourself. So I look for that in other people. And lastly, I look for this in myself more than anybody else, but just authenticity, particularly in the leadership realm. Honestly, when you're first starting out, you can be whoever you want to be. You're just trying to get going. People gravitate to leaders who are authentic. And that could be a lot of things. You could be serious, you could be strong, you could be funny, you could be empathetic, doesn't matter. It just matters that it's really you.
Yeah.
If you're faking one of these attributes, people can smell it and people are going to do their own thing. They're not going to follow in line because they don't think you're being real.
Yeah.
Even if they don't love it all the time, if you're being your authentic self, people will come on board because they respect it.
Great advice. And then as you continue to grow, and obviously your career and the listeners and followers, what are some I guess newsworthy places where you kind of stay up to date on sports industry trends? And I guess is that something that you put a lot of time into, or is it more kind of business development within your own company type of stuff?
Connor, it's a great question. It's something I do a lot. It's actually, if I could think of mistakes I made early on, was not uh like sort of reading the trades and being aware of what's at the forefront of things. I just, when I was younger in my career, I was just doing what was 6 inches in front of my face because I was trying to like impress my boss with the main thing, which I wouldn't, which I think is the right thing to do.
Uh-huh.
But there was still time to read the Sports Business Journal, read Front Office Sports, read Sportico. There's an organization called Brand Innovators that I think
Mhm.
is a really incredible group, and they have a lot of sports content in it. So those are the main ones um, that I think about. And I really, the other thing is just like follow people you really think are interesting. Follow them on LinkedIn and like put an honest and dedicated effort into truly reading their comments. I mean, just following somebody, people get excited. It's like, look, I have 1 million followers, whatever. Those are kind of empty calories.
Yeah.
But strategically, like figuring out people that you really want to follow in the sense of want to truly follow what work they're doing and actualize it yourself. I would highly recommend that.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I love the empty calories analogy there. That was well played, well said there. And as you know, the younger professionals and whatnot, professionals, I keep saying young professionals, just my target, I guess, audience out here is like 24 to about 30-ish. And so that's to kind of give you a ballpark. But as they continue to grow in their career, you mentioned a little bit of advice, but would you say, I guess, have you seen in your time people go from like a finance, like a JP Morgan or something, then come into sports, or have you seen much crossover in other industries coming into sports?
Yes. So I mean, there's two tracks. Obviously, starting in sports is helpful, and you kind of get in the tent early, and then you
Mhm.
have some visibility of the various
Yeah.
sort of verticals within sports. But there are a lot of people coming in, and there's some interesting industries that are people start in and then come over horizontally to sports. One is finance. I mean, the impact of finance, the impact of private equity and investment banking
Yeah.
in sports has been exploded. So people are coming from, good example, JP Morgan or some of these private equity groups, like, more generic private equity groups that
Mhm.
now have sports divisions. That has been a big influx. Another area is data. And like sort of revenue ops or strategy, where again, businesses like insurance the bones of their business is predicated on data, and actuarial tables. That same skill set can be used in sports for dynamic pricing of tickets
Yeah.
or valuations of sponsorship. So the answer is more so now. By the way, people can come from other industries into sports more now than when I started. It was a pretty open business, but it was a little bit more who you know. It was a little bit more opaque of how do you even break into sports. Now I think it's much more transparent.
Yeah, well, and especially I feel like we've seen a lot. Not that sports has never been a business, but I feel like now more than ever it is a business, right? Then so
It's
these
a good point.
owners are looking for CEOs at, I don't know, Pepsi or whatever, right? To come in and say, okay, run it like a business and go from there. And kind of before we start wrapping up, what are some of the future plans for Concierge Live and maybe some updates or some things that you're looking forward to in the future?
Yeah, listen, we have to change as fast as the ticket industry is changing. I mentioned the digitization of the business. We need to continue to sort of align ourselves with that sort of innovation. And then there are just new products in our space. Listen, ticket banks are becoming a big part
Yeah.
of the ticketing space where someone doesn't have a full season of tickets. Instead, they have a bank of tickets or a bank of money that they're sort of applying. For various games that they want. So we need to continue to customize our software to sort of fit the needs of the industry and the needs of our customers. And then the other thing is we're supposed to be thought leaders for our customers and for the industry. So in addition to our core business, we want to be bringing information just about the industry as a whole. That's kind of a value add of partnering with us. And we put a big premium on that.
Yep, love it, and looking forward to watching it grow. And I was going to ask earlier, as you mentioned, the GM, the concept or thought question rather. If you could be a GM for any team, what team would it be?
It's a great question. Ultimately, and they have a GM that is way more way more qualified than I am, but I'm the world's biggest Duke basketball fan. These college teams now, because of NIL and a lot of other factors, they literally have a GM in addition to their sort of head coaching infrastructure.
Mhm.
So I would love that. I am not going to hold my breath, and I will continue to run this corporate ticket management software
Of
company
course.
just in case that call never comes.
Perfect. Yeah, so we'll keep on the lookouts there for that. And before we wrap up here, Brian, what are some maybe parting advice or last words that you want to give to listeners and viewers today?
Yeah, I mean, we covered a lot today, so it's great. Ultimately, working in sports is awesome. I often tell, even on my hardest days, I tell people, listen, like we're working in sports, although whatever sort of thing we're complaining about during that day, there are people outside of sports that wish they could be experiencing that. I
Mhm.
think one thing that I've learned and I'm trying to do better at than when I was earlier is just like enjoy the moment, be grateful for this experience that we're having in sports. And again, we're here to be professionals, we're here to run these businesses, but ultimately, most people in sports are sports fans and they're in sports for a reason. And like take mental pictures, like enjoy the experience. Because if not, you might as well do something else. You know, you might if you're not
Yep.
going to enjoy that part of the business, then you might as well just, go somewhere else just for a paycheck. So
Uh-huh.
really embrace it, enjoy it, and it's all part of the journey.
Great. Yep. Embrace it, enjoy it, love it. And thanks for sharing those thoughts and thanks for stopping by today. And to the listeners and viewers, this is going to conclude another episode of the Constant Sports Podcast. And thanks again to Brian for joining us and telling us a little bit about his career and Concierge Live. And so for all those out there, make sure to keep up to date on Concierge Live and kind of some of the next moves in the sports sector. And thanks again, Brian, for joining us. And this episode will be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, anywhere to get your podcast. So until next time, and we'll talk soon.
Connor, thanks so much. It was awesome.
Yep, appreciate it.